they really are. I think that's been Kirby's version of the gamesmanship. I think that, we may see, other versions of that as we get closer to the game. We really haven't gotten a lot of bulletin board material from either side. There hasn't been anything from, in the past, we've heard Clemson talk about how much they enjoy playing SEC teams, how much they want to beat SEC teams. We've heard almost none of that from the Clemson side here leading into this game. I'm also reminded of, and this is easy to forget, do y'all remember back in 2017 when, was it Dominic Sanders who talked about Notre Dame and how we want to punish them from the start? And there was like this real edge to Georgia that they want to go out and prove something big against Notre Dame in 2017. We haven't gotten a lot of that from Georgia. You'd probably expect that. It's a little bit out of character for Georgia to even speak that way before a game. But back in 2017, they certainly did ahead of the Notre Dame game. No bulletin board material really from either side going into the week. But I would suggest plenty of gamesmanship, whether it be Dabo sandbagging a little bit. There's all kinds of Clemson injury rumor stuff that's out there. I don't take a ton of that seriously, although I guess to some degree some of it has to at least be, born out of fact somehow, some way. And that's really kind of the sort of there's this fog of war, before the game. Misinformation kind of on both sides. What does it mean? What it's all about? Trying to figure all that out. Are we ready to go on all the other platforms here? All right, so we're Facebook, we're YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, everything else, podcast, radio, of course, DawgNation.com and the DawgNation app. Here's today's show. Really, really inspiring message right off the top from Georgia safety Lewis Cine, establishing himself as a clear leader for this team. Very interesting description from ESPN analyst Kirk Herbstreit on why this game is as big as so many in our comment section here on DawgNation.com have said that it is. Good stuff from Dabo Swinney on a similar subject. Jeff Sintel breaks it all down from a recruiting standpoint here today. Some of y'all have sent me some of the best golden shoe submissions we've gotten right in time for game week. Some of you really are in midseason form and all of that. So we'll do it all, and we'll make it fun, and we're glad you're with us for it. It is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented by Kroger, and it begins right now.
Today's episode of DawgNation Daily is brought to you by Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Presented by DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
I don't have to tell you this by now. It takes a lot if you're a Georgia and you want to beat a team the caliber of Clemson. And conversely, the same thing is true on the other side. If you're a Clemson, normally beating up on much weaker, much lesser stature programs in the ACC, to beat a team like Georgia, you got to have a lot going for you, a lot moving in the same direction to be able to win a game like that. We talk about the talent, and that clearly matters. Both these teams have hoarded more than their fair share of elite NFL caliber prospects on the recruiting trail the last few years. You talk about coaches, and there are coaches on all sides of this game who are respected. Brent Venables, longtime defensive coordinator at Clemson. Dabo Swinney has emerged as really, one of the top upper list head coaches in the sport. Multiple national championships will get you into that category. Kirby Smart's right there as well. All the lists come out of best coaches in college football, and Smart is near the top, and his record against other coaches ranked near him is quite impressive too. Work hard to hire a guy like Todd Monken. Obviously, Dan Lanning, a star on the rise as Georgia defensive coordinator. Just impressive coaches, talented players all over the place. But there's also something else that matters in a game like this. You got to have that leadership. And all those great coaches that I mentioned a moment ago, here's the thing they'll tell you, that obviously it's their job to lead their program. But over the course of a calendar year, starting in January, or the really good teams who start in the years prior to any given year, developing players who can do the job of leadership so not everything is coming from the coaches. Player-led teams are just better than coach-led teams. Eventually, adults get tuned out, whether it's young people who are themselves basically adults tuning out, their coaches, or younger than that there as well. The words of adults just eventually start to sound like the Charlie Brown teacher, wah, 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 wah. But when it's a player who's sending that message, all of a sudden those words just pack an extra punch. They just carry a little bit of extra weight, whether it's spoken in a locker room or when maybe we get a glimpse of what might be spoken in a locker room, shared with us on social media there as well. A lot of you this week have been reacting and reflecting on what Georgia safety Lewis Cine put on Instagram. Before I show this to you on the screen, let me just say this. I think it's really cool how that safety position for Georgia has become one of the spots where you look to see Georgia leadership. I mean, think about the way it started with J.R. Reed, and no one could have known that J.R. Reed, when he transferred from Tulsa, was going to end up years ago being as valuable for the Georgia defense as he became. But once he became that, he established a template where now you say, well, it'll be Richard LeCounte's turn to slide into that role, and that's basically what LeCounte did. Obviously, his senior season cut short by an injury, but LeCounte slid into that role that J.R. Reed was in. And then after LeCounte, it became very easy to say, well, the baton is just going to get passed to Lewis Cine, because of the way in which Cine carried himself off the field, going back to his time as a recruit. A lot of Georgia fans were very impressed with him. It's very easy to predict him seemingly to be a contributing player very early on in his career, and that's basically the way all that worked out. Sometimes it is just easy in terms of deciding who's going to be an impactful player and maybe who's not. In the case of Cine, he was quickly identified as one of those guys whose impact on Georgia from a tangible and intangible standpoint was going to be really high. And an example of that on Instagram. And if this is the stuff that Cine is saying in a locker room, or the other leaders who kind of stand on a similar mantle to Cine, if this is what these Georgia players are saying ahead of a game against a Clemson, then boy, those of us who are fans of this program, those of us who have been hungry for Georgia to get a win like the one that has a chance to earn on Saturday, I think a lot of us are going to feel like that Georgia's in a really good place here. Let me read the words here from Cine on Instagram. I think it's inspiring. It's the kind of thing you want players who have the gravitas to be able to say. Here on Instagram, Cine says, and we're going back now a couple of days, he says, 3 days out, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited. We are completely, all caps here, locked in, and something feels different. We're different, and this Saturday the world's going to see the difference. Get ready, UGA Nation, because, and he played on his own name here, says we're back on the scene, and he spells it C-I-N-E. Man, you could unpack all those words and spend 20 minutes doing so. But it is a big stage. And frankly, I do want the Georgia players to be excited. I do want – it's like for those of you, who, kind of think about other sports, things like that, the concept in basketball of I want guys who want the ball. The infielder in Little League Baseball who wants the ball hit to him. He wants to make the play. Like, I want Georgia football players who want the ball going into Saturday. I want Georgia football players like Lewis Cine that says, I'm excited because the entire country is going to be watching this game on Saturday night. And yes, there's more college football to be played all throughout the weekend, but nobody disputes. Main event anywhere in America is Georgia Clemson from Charlotte. Everybody's going to be watching, and somebody gets a chance to make a name for themselves. And frankly, I'm glad that Lewis Cine says, I want that to be me. I want the world of college football fans to know who I am by the end of this game. And the fact that he's pushing his Georgia teammates in that same direction, I think that's great. Listen, I understand why coaches have to say, this is just one game out of 12, one game at a time, no bigger than any other game we play. I understand why coaches say that, but frankly, that kind of hollow coach speak is one of the reasons why the coach's message eventually wears thin on the players, because the players deep down just simply know it isn't true. What Lewis Cine there said, that's what rings true. We do feel different. We are excited. We are looking forward to this big stage. These are the kinds of things you dream of, because if you didn't want to play in games like this, it'd be a lot easier to go to another program where you could start as a freshman and get your name in the program and be on the cover of the media guide. It's easier other places, but players choose to do what's hard because they crave the kind of attention that comes on the other side of big games like this. And I think Lewis Cine here is terrific. Really strong words from him. It's powerful leadership. And to the extent that those same kinds of things are being said by Cine and other players at practice this week in the locker room before the game, y'all better get ready for Saturday. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. And with that in mind, let me transition to this. So I mentioned that on Thursday afternoon I had a chance to be a part of a phone call that ESPN analyst Kirk Herbstreit was on. And yesterday on the show, we kind of played you some of the audio from that. Herbstreit breaking down the Georgia offense, Herbstreit breaking down the Georgia defense, and those are all really important conversations, right? Because ultimately a football game is decided by football players and how those players are deployed by the coaches, and we get all of that. But it's also important, I think, to have an appreciation of the magnitude of the game. The magnitude of this game is what makes Lewis Cine say the things that he says on social media, and probably saying similar things like that in person with his teammates before the game. That this is a big game. And I thought that Kirk Herbstreit this week did a really good job of laying out the stakes for the game. This is not an exhibition. This is not, what is it, the soccer guys talk about? This is not a friendly. This is not one of those deals where everybody's going to pose for pictures and trade jerseys after the game's over. Georgia and Clemson are both playing for something. And it is possible for the loser of this game to still make the college football playoff, but you should know that is not the likely scenario. The loser of this game is probably not going to the college football playoff. Can they still? Yes. And if Georgia is unfortunately on the wrong side of that, then we'll obviously spend several weeks talking about how Georgia gets back into that. But make no mistake about this. The loser of this game on Saturday puts themselves in a tough spot because they eliminate from the word go whatever margin for error they had as far as making the college football playoff is concerned. And when Kirk Herbstreit spoke to me and some other reporters here earlier this week, he talked about the game he's broadcasting, and he explained in his own words why he thinks it's so important. This is Kirk Herbstreit on Georgia Clemson.
For people that look at this game and think, well, it's early in the year, you can lose this game and recover, all true. The only thing I would throw out there is a reminder that both these teams have a pretty good chance, no matter what the result is, of winning a lot of games. Potentially, a lot of people are predicting both these teams to get into the top four or be right around the top four. Especially I say this for Clemson because they don't have a lot of top 25 opponents coming up after they play Georgia. They got maybe one or two, but not a lot. You lose this game if you're Clemson, and then you win out and you win the ACC. And let's just say, for argument's sake, Georgia wins the East and they go to Atlanta and they lose a close one to Alabama. And now we're starting to look at the committee. One of the words that they use is cluster. They look at a cluster of teams. How do they separate clusters within this committee? They either look at conference champion, they look at head-to-head, things like that, and strength of schedule. But head-to-head would apply to the Clemson-Georgia matchup.
So think about Kirk Herbstreit's words there for a moment. We played audio earlier this week, leaked, of Brenton Venables hosting linebacker Justin Flo in a recruiting visit. Venables supposedly says in that video that we're keeping track. Remember him saying that, of the fact that Georgia hasn't won a national championship since 1980. Clemson had won a couple, and Venables was using that as part of his recruiting pitch, supposedly to Justin Flo in this video. Kirk Herbstreit says right there that Georgia can knock Clemson out of the playoff discussion on Saturday night, at least have a strong chance of doing so. Wouldn't you like to do that? Wouldn't you like to shut up Brent Venables so he's not using, Georgia's name in his mouth when he's trying to sell Clemson as a program in the recruiting trail? Wouldn't you like to shut that up? For all these Clemson fans who think their program's so big and so bad because they've been dragging Wake Forest up and down fields, or Boston College up and down fields, or Duke, or NC State, or whatever the team that Clemson's supposedly playing, wouldn't you like to take them down a peg? Wouldn't you like to kick them out of the playoff before the season basically even starts? That's what Georgia's playing for on Saturday. And yeah, Clemson would like to do the same thing to Georgia. And maybe Georgia's path is a little bit easier because obviously the SEC provides the extra cachet. But make no mistake about it, college football is a zero-sum game. Good things for you mean bad things for somebody else. So when Georgia reaches out and grabs this game on Saturday, if it does, not only is it putting money in its own pocket, figuratively speaking, but it's taking food off the table of the Clemson Tigers, to mix metaphors here. And Kirk Herbstreit lays it out pretty clearly right there. Let me let you hear more from Kirk on the same topic.
So if you're Clemson and you lose this game, it puts you on the back burner, in my view, based on what the committee's done in recent years. And I think that would give Clemson fans a little bit of anxiousness about this game. They need to win this game. Even though it's week one, you do not want to get caught up in a cluster against Georgia and have the committee say, well, they lost to these guys early in the year, so we're going to give Georgia the advantage.
I love that phrase there, back burner. Right now, Clemson's been on the front burner. They've been in every college football playoff since 2015. They've beaten Auburn in a home and home during that time. They've beaten Texas A&M in a home and home that time. But this is Georgia's chance to put them on the back burner. This is Georgia's chance to put itself on the front burner. This is Georgia's chance to say, hey, all that stuff that's been said about us since 1980, that's ancient history. In 2021, Georgia is on the march. And the first step towards that journey begins Saturday night in Charlotte against Clemson. I think Kirk Herbstreit says it great right there. Georgia can take something from Clemson, earn it for itself. I cannot wait for Saturday night. My name's Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, presented by Kroger, and glad to have you with us no matter how you get to us today, live on video, 10 a.m., on the DawgNation homepage, DawgNation app, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, probably other platforms too that I don't even know about. However you're watching us right now, I really appreciate you doing it. Podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google for all you Android folks out there. Some of you listen right there on SoundCloud. We post the show at DawgNation.com. Many of you listen right there. And of course, our friends on the radio, Athens Sports Radio 960 The Ref. Good to have all of you with us today. Big thanks to our friends at Kroger for making it all possible. Of course, our folks from Kroger are going to be with us for DawgNation Invasion, too, because, listen, when you're having a fun tailgate, you got to bring the food with you as well. You got to bring the beverages, and we get stocked up for our tailgates around here at Kroger, and you can do the same thing there as well. You can save on hot dogs right now, hardwood smoked baby back ribs. That's a fantastic thing. We actually did I'm not supposed to say this, but we did a cool video shoot with Kroger the other day for some stuff we're going to be doing later on, and the terrific chef from Kroger was making some special ribs. Man, it was so good. So you can get some of that kind of stuff at Kroger right now. All the stuff you need for your tailgating, you can get that at Kroger, and you can save instantly when you use your Kroger Plus card, and you can get fuel points there too. So check out Kroger, the one closest to you, as we head towards the weekend for all of that. Game day on Saturday. Get stocked up, get your game face on, because it is time to get going. All right, we are very, very busy on today's show. Jeff Sintel is coming up. And I want to look at Georgia Clemson from a recruiting standpoint, and not just the symbolic stuff of, hey, if you win the game, what does that show to future recruits? Although I can think of a few by name that are probably watching pretty closely on Saturday, but also for the guys who are going to be there. We've heard lots of internet chatter, online chatter this week about guys who plan on being in Charlotte for the game. So that's always a really fun thing to do. So we'll do a lot of that with Jeff Sintel. Also, I think I mentioned this to some of our video folks before too. We got some of the best golden shoe submissions we've ever gotten. I'm talking about NFT quality video work here, edit work here for some of this kind of stuff. So at the end of the show, we're just going to put a bunch of this stuff on the screen, have a good time with it, and just try to put ourselves in a happy, good mood as we wrap up the week and get ready to get serious about football all weekend long. Of course, I'll see you tonight, Peachtree TV, CBS46.com, for a terrific game between Allatoona and Kennesaw Mountain, two great programs in that Cobb County area doing big-time battle. Obviously, we were supposed to be doing Gunner Stockton and Rabun County against Eagles Landing Christian Academy. Had to pivot quickly away from that, as a lot of folks are doing this time of our lives in these years that we're in. But Allatoona and Kennesaw Mountain going to be a good one tonight on TV. Now, for now, let's keep our attention on Georgia Clemson. Let's do so by going around the doghouse, delivered today by our friends at Marco's Pizza. And, of course, Marco's Pizza, a great choice when you're thinking about getting all the food that you need to get through. Remember, y'all, we had football that started on Wednesday with UAB, Tennessee, Ohio State, teams like that playing last night. I believe tonight is UNC, Virginia Tech. Am I right about that? So for UNC, which is supposed to be a big season, they got to go to Lane Stadium, Blacksburg, full crowd, Inner Sandman. Hokies catching about 5 at home. So y'all get ready for that one on a Friday night there. And then obviously all day Saturday. I think Notre Dame, Florida State is Sunday. Monday back in Atlanta for Ole Miss, Louisville. So you're going to need to order plenty of Marco's Pizza, because that is a big, big weekend of football that's on the way. But let me keep my attention where it's supposed to be, on Georgia Clemson here for a moment. And much the same way a moment ago I let you hear from Kirk Herbstreit, really laying it out. Georgia has a chance to put Clemson on the back burner. For those of us who like professional wrestling, Georgia can turn this into a loser leaves town with Clemson when it comes to its college football playoff credentials. I like that. I think these teams are playing for something on Saturday. They come in rivals. They may leave even more so than that based on how the paint gets traded on Saturday night. And to his credit, Dabo Swinney, a guy that we're not really giving a lot of credit to this week for obvious reasons, but to his credit, I think Dabo Swinney kind of understands this there as well. Not just the importance in this season for these two teams on the shortest of short lists for championship contention, but also for those of us who were, children in the 80s, who grew up when Georgia Clemson was as big as it got for the Dogs from a rivalry standpoint. Dabo Swinney kind of understands all that there as well, and the way in which the geographic proximity plays into this discussion. Here's some good stuff on this game from Dabo Swinney earlier this week.
It just, makes sense. You're right down the road from each other. And we've played big opponents for 12 years since I've been the head coach here. That's kind of what we've done. We've gone all the way out to A&M. We've gone to Auburn. We've done a couple of kickoff classic type things now, so it brings a lot of excitement to it, and certainly the fans love it. Anytime you play a quality opponent like we've played over the years, but Clemson, Georgia is not just a quality game and quality opponent. There's a tradition there that and a history that I think both sides, have a lot of respect for. There's been a lot of unbelievable moments in the Clemson, Georgia game, over the years.
Let me say something about what Dabo says there, and I think that Georgia fans will appreciate this. We say all the time that, listen, you want Georgia to play in big games. The players that come here want to play in big games. But there's actually something maybe a little bit better than that, and Dabo Swinney, I think, describes it. As a Georgia fan, you want your team, Georgia, you want Georgia to be somebody's big game, right? And Dabo Swinney right there gives Georgia a pretty nice compliment if you really listen to those words. He says, we played the Auburns, we played the Texas A&Ms, but this one just feels different. We've done the kickoff classic type stuff before, but not top 5 versus top 5 in Charlotte with the place painted half red, half orange, and these two fan bases, taking over these parking lots before the game, DawgNation Invasion, tailgate, and everything else is going to be going on there. This one just feels different. Clemson's won national championships, but it views Georgia as a big game. And that's kind of cool, right? You want to play in the game, but you want to be somebody's big game. The presence of a stature of Georgia, the fan base that comes with it, the media attention that comes with it, the TV audience that follows it. A program like Clemson looks across the field at Georgia and says, this is the kind of opponent we need if we want to play in the biggest possible game, and I think that's a pretty cool thing. And credit to Dabo Swinney there as well, an interesting story by how he explains all this, for the fact that he appreciates the long-standing history. We know Kirby Smart does because we've played you the audio of that before. But Dabo Swinney also appreciating the long history these two programs have with each other and how quickly into his tenure as Clemson head coach that Dabo discovered just how true that is. Once again, good stuff from Dabo.
I can remember when I got the job in 08, 09, people were talking about playing Georgia in 2013. I remember that vividly. We're going to play Georgia. It's like I don't even know if I'm going to be the head coach or alive in 2000. I'm just trying to survive 09, and people are asking me about playing Georgia in 2013. So it's a big deal. It means a lot. Your proximity, fan bases, living on top of each other in both states, Clemson people, Georgia people. So I think that just adds to the excitement. It's what makes college football, fun is rivalries like this.
It's the closest I'll come to giving Dabo a compliment, but he gets it, right? This is what makes college football fun. It's rivalries. It's the butterflies in your stomach of how's my team going to play in this big stage and, begrudging respect for your opponent. This is what makes it, right? This is the stuff we kind of live for as sports fans a little bit, and sports doesn't always give us an equal measure. This is one of those moments, and frankly, I'm glad that Dabo has the appreciation for the game that he has because I think he's 100% true in the way that he describes that, and I can't wait. For those of you who are lucky enough to be there, I can't wait to see all of you in Charlotte here over the course of the weekend. That is Around the Doghouse. It's delivered today by our friends at Marco's Pizza, and if you're home watching football this weekend, and if you're like me, the one thing I can't have is fussy food during a time like this. It's got to be easy to get. With Marco's Pizza, that's the one thing they'll always be able to do for you each and every time. Whether you're ordering at Marcos.com or on the Marcos app, you're going to be able to either have it delivered right there to your door, you can swing into the store and pick it up. That's what Marco's Pizza is. It's great tasting, authentic flavor pizza that you don't have to work very hard to get. It can be delivered right there to you if you want to. Also great savings there as well. How about the bundle right now, which includes a large one-topping pizza, a pizza bowl, which is essentially the pizza flavor without the crust. That's a very, very good thing. And the cheesy bread, it's all just $21.99. Great savings on that. Marco's app, Marcos.com to order. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it, and you can get it this weekend there as well when you stop by Marcos.com or the Marco's app to place your order today. Of course, participation does vary, so check your local store for more details on all of that, but it's great to have Marco's Pizza delivering Around the Doghouse to us here today. All right, fun golden shoes before we're done. Look around the SEC, including an old friend of the SEC who made his debut at UCF last night and the start of the Josh Heupel era there at Tennessee. Tennessee fans hoping the Heupel era doesn't become a Heupel error, because I don't think they can quite afford another bad coach, but they may have one on their hands. We'll wait and find out. We'll talk about all of what happened already this weekend involving the SEC later on, and a little bit of a look ahead of the other games there as well. But for now, when you think about all of the recruiting implications of a game like Georgia and Clemson, what's on the line here, and how a win like this also propels Georgia for future success on the recruiting trail. Let's break it all down with Jeff Sintel, our recruiting insider. No better person to do that with than him, as we go on the road, assisted by AAA, with Jeff Sintel before we all get on the road to Charlotte tomorrow. Hope you enjoy it right now.
From Athens and across the SEC or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
And we'll say hello to Jeff Sintel here. And, Jeff, it's fun to hear the various figures involved in the game, whether it's a Kirk Herbstreit, a Dabo Swinney. Obviously, we've heard plenty from Kirby Smart over the course of the last months about this. There are just certain games that just feel different, and I would say this is definitely one of those. As a sports fan myself, across all sports, but certainly specifically college football, you just know it when you're a part of it. There's butterflies in your stomach as a fan. There's energy about how it's all going to unfold. We've all had opinions about this now going back really more than a year, and now it's finally here, and I'm sure you are as excited for it as I am.
Brandon, I think the word is ecstatic. I tell you what, brother, you got me pumped up, man. It sounded like you had pay-per-view steak shares in this game. I heard you talking about taking food off the table. I heard you mentioning back burners. All I needed was a NASCAR reference and then maybe a 1990s movie cliche. And then the Brandon Adams Big Game bingo board would have been filled up, man. I wouldn't even need the free space.
No, I like that. But Jeff, you know this. We played some video earlier this week, supposedly Brent Venables hosting Justin Flo in a recruiting visit, and the whole, they hadn't won a national championship since 1980. I'm not scandalized by negative recruiting. I know that it goes on, and frankly, I don't get my feelings hurt very easily. But I do want to shut it up when I can, right? I want to eliminate ways in which programs can negatively recruit against Georgia. And I do truly believe that a win for Georgia in a game like this, with obviously more games to come later on, but a win like this head-to-head, I just think it shuts some of that kind of stuff up. And I do think, whether it's immediately reflected in the 2022 class or not, I do think it gives Georgia a higher pedestal from which to recruit in the future. From that standpoint, I think the game very much matters.
Yeah. I think, Brandon, I think the thing there is this is one of those games that has a ripple or a fault line effect, because, maybe the 2022 cycle is everybody's kind of going down their Plinko route, which they're supposed to go down on the big game board. But brother, I'll tell you, that 2023 cycle, I think what's fascinating about this neutral site game is they're actually there's a Clemson section where recruits from Clemson are getting tickets, and then there's a Georgia section where recruits on the Georgia side are getting tickets, and it's interesting to see how the party lines are forming for a lot of guys that really love both Clemson and Georgia, like a Justice Haynes or A.J. Harris. I was just speaking to Ruben Owens recently. That's the brilliant five-star back out of Texas in the 2023 cycle. He's going to be there. He's going to be in the Georgia section. All the luminaries of the 2022 class, the Delps, the Stocktons, but I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of big in-state or regional battles with guys that Georgia has had a foothold with for some time. That Clemson's right there knocking at the door with them too. And I'm going to tell you this: the direction and the potential brilliance of Georgia's 2023 class. I'd say about a year out, I thought it was probably going to be the best class Georgia's ever had under Kirby Smart. And I know we always say that, but the reason why I was thinking that at that time is Georgia never really kind of had the bona fide guys that were just really going to come on strong and be a part of that class eventually that early with so many big names like they did, like it looked like the way 2023 was trending. And, of course, everything changes every 2 months in the recruiting world. But at that stage, it was a pretty stout group that was already forming for Georgia. But the way that, Clemson can take a lot of teeth out of that Georgia class is to play well and to put down the dogs in Charlotte, and that'll cause a little bit of doubt or a little bit of, wow, where's the best program at? Where do I need to go? Maybe Clemson is right, but I will add a cool footnote, Brandon, for everybody that wants to know about the recruiting world and the recruiting arena. If Venables, you had the video with that speech he had or that pitch he had to Justin Flo. Well, not a lot of that negative recruiting works out a lot. Normally, when you badmouth an opponent, that just really makes yourself look bad. Anybody that's in sales knows is when you take down the competition, what happens is it also doesn't make yourself looking good in the long run. And we all know where Justin Flo ended up. He didn't end up in Death Valley.
Yeah, that's a really good point there on that. Explain this to me for a moment. So obviously when it comes to Georgia, Florida, both sides have mutually agreed not to host recruits for a game like that. But I remember, games that Georgia's played in Atlanta in the past and, frankly, other programs there too. Alabama comes to mind where, okay, so the recruit buys the ticket and he gets in the game that way, but he's nothing more than an attendee of the game. He's not, he's not taking, I'm using air quotes here, he's not taking a visit. It sounds like the scenario for Georgia and Clemson and Charlotte is different. Why is it different? I'll admit I'm not very well versed when it comes to rules in this particular thing here, but why is the game in Charlotte from a recruiting standpoint seemingly so different than what we've had experience for a lot of these teams who come through Atlanta in the past?
Well, it's still going to be like a recruiting visit was, I guess, last year during the pandemic. It's a fan-only experience. You're not going to be hosted at all. You're not going to be taken down on the sidelines, obviously, with a lot of the protocols in place. But, the other thing there was you got to remember that, Georgia-Florida is kind of like a conference game, and the two teams kind of agree on the way that thing's going to be run throughout the years. And quite frankly, I think most of them kind of look at most times, both staffs kind of look at that as, hey, we're here to win this football game that's huge for the SEC East, and maybe not be hosting recruits. But it is interesting how, there's an allotment of tickets where they'll be sitting around Georgia folks, and there's an allotment of tickets where they'll be sitting around Clemson folks. And it's funny, Brandon, this is an easier ticket to me for a lot of these big-time recruits to get. You wonder about the secondary market and how big, how much of a hot ticket this is. I know a lot of recruits that are bringing brothers, sisters, moms, everybody else like that to this game. And you're going to see a lot of guys showing up. A lot of guys in the 2023 classes, the 2024 classes are showing up for a game like this. So there will be a lot of interested leaned-in bystanders for this one on Saturday.
Yeah, the get-in price right now is less than $200. Really, it's basically less than $150. So like the current, now you can obviously spend big money and sit all across the stadium, depending on where you want to be, and spend more money to do so. But if you're looking at a get-in price right now, it's less than $150 to actually get in the stadium here at this point in time. But once again, not to put too fine of a point on this because it probably doesn't matter that much. But so Georgia and Clemson can give tickets to recruits right now, or do those tickets, or do the recruits have to buy those tickets at this moment?
I think it's the latter, Brandon. It's you get to sit in a Georgia section. I know these tickets had to be requested weeks ago. I know some players that were like, I promised them I would come 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I'm gonna make sure I come and sit in their section. Because a lot of these guys have crossover recruits. I'm sure both recruits were trying to. Both recruiting staffs were trying to get both. Both. There's a player that was most wanted by both staffs, and it's interesting to see where some of these guys will be sitting on Saturday, whether they're going to be in the orange and white section or orange and purple section or in the red and black section.
Yeah, and with that in mind, rattle off some of the names that you can confirm are going to be there, rumored to be there. You mentioned Justice Haynes a moment ago. That's a really interesting kind of subplot of, as you said, like what side do certain guys like that sit on. Of course, I think a lot of folks hope a UGA legacy like that will be in the red and black portion of the stadium. But just for some specific names, I've heard online chatter, for instance, about Walter Nolan and others.
Yeah.
Who can you say will be there on Saturday, or at least is expected to be there?
Like Walter Nolan, that's one. Justice Haynes, AJ Harris will be there. I got confirmation from that family that the 5-star corner in the 2023 class will be there. Big Bear Alexander told me this week that he's going to be there. I think we've all already reported on various channels that Oscar Delp and Gunnar Stockton are both going to be there. Christian Miller, C.J. Madden, Kyan Lee. It's funny. This is kind of how tickets are going. This is a great example. C.J. is going. He's going with some members of his family. Same thing for Christian Miller. The same thing with Kyan Lee. And those guys are all like teammates on the same Cedar Grove team that are going to be playing in Moultrie tonight against Colquitt County. And a lot of these guys are making the trip. You keep going down the list. I think Andre Green Jr. will be there. I think he's going to be a visitor on the Clemson side. That's the fabulous wide receiver out of Virginia. You keep going up and down the list. There's a lot of big names. Some guys have like a national schedule where a school like IMG usually is playing on the weekend, or they're traveling over the weekend. IMG Academy out of Bradenton, but there's a lot of Jacob Hood, the recent Georgia commitment, the 6'8", 330-pounder out of Nashville is going to be there. Sammy Brown, a guy that's already a 2024 recruit, standing out with averaging 18.5 yards per carry and over like 230 yards already, with about 10 tackles at linebacker. That's a 2024 top 10 recruit that's going to be there. Levius Overton, LT Overton. Really, Brennan, it's more of a matter for me of like, I'm at the point now where there's a big luminary, a big highly rated guy that's not going to be there. That's what kind of raises my eyebrows more when I hear about a guy that's not going to be there. Some folks are going to choose to see the Alabama-Miami game because maybe they have Alabama on their mind as well, and maybe that's closer to Georgia. But there's a lot of guys that are going to be there in that game, and I don't really know. I know that everybody loves to see the list about who's going to show up, but for me, they're going to be watching the game. They're going to be sensing. They're going to be soaking it all up. They're going to be watching the team on the sidelines. Most recruits tell me the best benefit they get from being at a big game like this is watching their position group and watching how their coach kind of marshals and galvanizes their guys in their position group during a big game, because that's going to be a replica or a reality for them about what it's going to be like if they choose to play for that coach and on that team in a big spot in a big game like this. They like to see how the players respond. They like to see the adjustments, the way the guys warm up, kind of little things like that. But I think it's a shuttered experience when you don't get to go into the locker room afterward, or you don't get a dog walk or a tiger walk, or you don't get to actually be out on the field watching them warm up, and then maybe a Kendall Milton and Keely Ringo comes by and daps you up and everything else like that. I think it's an experience, but it's not the full-blown game day visit experience where I think recruiting staffs make a lot of headway with.
Along those lines, I'm not quite sure how far the drive from Ohio to Charlotte is. My guess is Bishop Sycamore also going to have a large contingent on hand for the game as well.
I think Bishop Sycamore. Did you hear the new recruits they got? They brought in some of the Toon Squad that just recently lost to LeBron James in their latest matchup. I mean, that story is certainly taking on a life of its own over the last couple of days. And I'm going to say this, Brandon. Playing in that game and all this national exposure, it's going to do more good for that brand, provided that they still have a brand after the Ohio Department of Education is through with it. I think that's going to do more help than harm for the Bishop Sycamore name, because they've got a lot of free publicity out of this, man.
Yeah, so that is certainly true. Speaking of publicity, a guy we've given a lot of attention to is Bear Alexander. I want to ask you more about him coming up in a moment. Before that, let me remind you, we're on the road, assisted by AAA with Jeff Sintel, and obviously we have fun talking about football, but there are serious things that we all have to think about away from the show and away from the game that we all love, and one of those things is how we take care of our children and support our families, and that also includes what happens after we're gone, and that's where life insurance comes in. If you haven't thought about life insurance, you need to make sure that you have, and the thing I want you to specifically think about is AAA, because AAA can help simplify the conversation when it comes to life insurance. Listen, one of the AAA financial services associate can walk you through all of it, all the options that you have available. I mean, you may not be aware of this, but nearly half of all U.S. households would feel the financial impact after just 6 months if they lost the primary wage earner. That's kind of how serious this is. That's why you need life insurance, and that's why you need to think about AAA for that life insurance. Of course, there's a few ways you can get in touch. Give them a call, 866-695-0222. Once again, that number, 866-695-0222, or AAA.com/life. That's AAA.com/life. Another simple way to do this is just stop by a AAA office and talk to somebody in person about all of that today. So, Jeff, it looks like Big Bear Alexander had a little bit of an interesting announcement over the course of the last couple of days, previewing an eventual announcement coming up early January as part of the Under Armour All-American game. Sounds like that's when the world will find out whether it's Georgia or Texas A&M for Big Bear.
Yeah, that was an announcement drop. He's going to do it for the Under Armour All-American game. Brendan, I think that's good news for Georgia folks that are invested in this recruitment. It certainly seems the way the Walter Nolan recruitment is going up and down. Travis Shaw is certainly sounding like he is the Pied Piper now with the North Carolina class now that he's a commitment. I think Big Bear Alexander is that marquee guy, along with I'm going to throw the name Hero Canoe in there, and I'm also going to throw the name Christian Miller in there as well. Maybe not the same type player across those different types of defensive tackles, but everybody thought, Georgia visit, A&M visit in June, quick decommitment, kept going back to Georgia, but also kept going back to Texas A&M. Everybody thought maybe it's just an eventuality. They see Dayon Bowie commit to Texas A&M, and most folks I talked to were kind of thinking, okay, when is the other shoe going to drop with Bear Alexander? Well, this thing's going to go a long way. He was at Georgia at the end of July. He is going to be at Georgia for this event. I expect him to come back and see Georgia at least one or two more times inside Sanford Stadium before he makes his decision. So this kind of takes all the pressure and all the timestamp element away from this recruitment. He can take it a long way like we've seen a lot of guys do. He plans to be an early enrollee, or kind of like one of those things that will have to be, as we've seen repeated so many times now with the Keely Ringos and Tyreek Stevensons of the world, where they make their decision on, and they sign on during the early signing period. It all stays hush-hush, and then the decision is revealed before the world on national TV for the Under Armour All-American game. I think that Final Two obviously is going to stay a Final Two, and it's just going to be an example of, hey, you win impressively in Clemson. You win about 13 games in 2021. That does nothing but build a case there for Georgia, which I expect will be a tight, hard-fought battle there between Texas A&M and Georgia for Big Bear Alexander.
Yeah, in all seriousness, we can finish with this. I mean, to go from Texas to Charlotte for a football game is not a passive decision. So in a roundabout way, it's got to mean something that he's willing to travel that far to come watch the game, especially given the fact that he is, not considering Clemson at the moment based on his own words. I mean, that's got to mean something for Georgia, doesn't it?
I think it means a great deal. I think it's another chance for Georgia to sell itself. And it's almost like this is a point in the recruitment where I think the recruit is looking for the reason to say yes, or looking for the reason they can't pass up. I know Bear Alexander has a ton of relationships at the University of Georgia. Fairly to say here, I think he has more relationships at the University of Georgia than he does at Texas A&M. Of course, there's the home state thing there. There's name, image, and likeness, being a son of the state of Texas if he chooses to go play for the Aggies. It seems like Texas A&M is just throwing around a lot of financial health lately with that new deal that Jimbo Fisher just got. And it seems like the coffers are quite full in College Station. So, Brandon, I think this is a recruitment that Georgia fans need to pay attention to. I think it is a recruitment that Georgia fans need to put that candle in the window and kind of hope for the best with Big Bear Alexander, because I think both staffs want him really well. I think Bear Alexander would be a great asset to the University of Georgia should he come. I was talking to Gunnar Stockton about him recently. Those two guys are really good friends. They hung out together this summer. Gunnar would love to have Big Bear Alexander in the class. Probably almost just as much as Kirby Smart or Trey Scott would love to have Big Bear Alexander in this class as well.
Jeff, really good stuff. Looking forward to being with you in Charlotte for DawgNation Invasion. What a fun party that's going to be leading up to the game. Hopefully we're still partying come Saturday night after the game. Great time all the way around. fantastic recruiting information. I'm also looking forward to seeing you tonight for what I think is going to be a terrific battle between Alatoona and Kennesaw Mountain there on Peachtree TV. We got big-time college prospects on both sides for that game. That's going to be a ton of fun. So we'll spend a lot of time together over the course of the next couple of days. A lot of football involved with it there too, and I'm looking forward to it all, and I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah, man, can't wait. Safe travels to everybody to Charlotte. Let's all get up there and have a good old time.
Sounds good, Jeff. We'll see you then.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
All right, really good stuff with Jeff Sintel there. Very, very interesting recruiting information on how this Georgia-Clemson game kind of impacts the 2022 class, including the guys who are going to be there. Good information all the way around on that. By the way, speaking of the party and DawgNation Invasion this weekend, one of the things that's going to be flowing is the Classic City Lager. I love Classic City Lager because I like taking a taste of Athens with me everywhere I go. Of course, you don't have to be in the Classic City to enjoy it. It's available in 6 and 12-pack cans all year long wherever you're doing your shopping. It's kind of funny. One of our guys, BJ, who's obviously behind the scenes working to make DawgNation Invasion a success and really tirelessly working and all of that, he sent me a picture yesterday, big, truck that's kind of on its way up there to get stocked for the tailgate. This thing's loaded down with Classic City Lager, and it's awesome, man. Those cans are going to be flowing tomorrow. Everybody's going to be having a good time, and there was not much tailgating last year. In fact, there was really none at all. But to think that, with folks doing what they need to do to make themselves healthy and safe, we're able to enjoy that tomorrow. I feel quite grateful on all that, and I'm glad the Classic City Lager is going to be flowing as we're doing it. Check yourself out some if you haven't. It's just good cold beer. Find some today wherever you're doing your shopping from Creature Comforts Brewing Company, wherever you're going, wherever you're shopping. 12 months out of the year, you can pick up 6 and 12-pack cans of Classic City Lager. Make sure you check some of that out. It is good cold beer. All right, a couple of SEC through stories, and most of this kind of reflecting back on what happened last night in college football. First of all, Josh Heupel did earn his debut in a 38-6 win for Tennessee against Bowling Green. Not a cover, though, if you care about that. Just shy of covering were the Vols last night. But you did see some things from Joe Milton that you obviously like. Milton's clearly got a big arm. He's clearly a good athlete. And the early stages against, Bowling Green is terrible. This is obviously a totally overmatched team. But in the early stage of that game, you saw Tennessee moving the football a little bit. I truly believe that Tennessee is one of the safest underplays in all of college football. Their season win total was 6. They got one last night. They need 6 more to cover that number. I don't think they get there, but the one thing I do think you will see, though, is, and you saw this last night, scoring some points, moving the football. It was interesting to talk to Tony Barnhart on SEC Country Live earlier this week because I told him, I said, listen, Tony, if I was Heupel, I'd want to build around the future. I'd want to make Harrison Bailey my starting quarterback. Of course, you remember him as a former big-time recruit from Marietta High School. I want to make a guy like Bailey my quarterback so that I can have something in place that I can grow into for the next couple of years. And what Tony relayed on SEC Country Live was that the people he had talked to in Knoxville had said that Milton made it obvious during practice. There was no doubt that Milton was the better quarterback right now. Now, Tony also said that they still see a big role for Bailey in the future. Good luck convincing him of that, I would say. But nonetheless, Milton apparently made it obvious that he was the quarterback. They scored some points last night. And now let's see, in SEC play, where they're going to lose plenty, can they be entertaining while doing so? Can they get into the 30s against some SEC defenses later on this season? Pay attention to that. A former SEC name also got a debut win last night at his new job, UCF. This one did not look good for a while for the Golden Knights. Boise State getting out to the early lead after a lightning delay, but Dylan Gabriel, the UCF quarterback, eventually helps lead the Golden Knights back to a victory there, and the first one for Malzahn in his era as coach there in Orlando at the Bounce House, I believe they call it. So a lot of you remember back to 2016, and you remember that Kirby Smart was not thought of then necessarily the way that he is now. He brought a lot of energy to Georgia. You had 93K for the G-Day, and you had a lot of excitement about the former Georgia player, the UGA alumnus, as head coach. But it's not like the whole world was sold that Kirby Smart was going to be a great coach for Georgia. In fact, there are a lot of columnists and media types who really push the narrative of, are we sure Georgia made the right choice at coach when Smart was losing games in 2016, and Mark Richt, who became head coach at Miami, was for a while at the beginning of his tenure really winning a lot of games there. And it became this unpleasant comparison for Georgia for a while. Eventually, Smart started winning and pushed all that to the rearview mirror, and now it's to the point that people almost have a hard time even remembering that was ever true. But for a while there, people were trying to talk this up of, Georgia let Mark Richt get away. They weren't set aside 10 wins, and he's down there at Miami winning all kinds of games, and Kirby Smart's suffering by comparison here at UGA. That's the way it was talked about. Well, that was a phony narrative for Smart because it wasn't, very long-lived. But for Auburn, you better believe there's a chance this is real. I think that Brian Harsin is going to struggle in year one. And I think that Gus Malzahn is set up for success at UCF. Frankly, to the extent that there are UCF fans, I'm sure they would all say they feel like they have a better coach now. A guy like Gus Malzahn, who's won an SEC championship in his past, better than the unproven Josh Heupel, who frankly didn't do that great while he was head coach at UCF, now at Tennessee. I think Malzahn is going to work out very well for UCF. Win last night, proof of that. Or I shouldn't say that's proof of that, but a step in that direction is probably the better way to say that. But as Malzahn is winning in Orlando and Harsin is losing on the Plains, that is going to be a very unpleasant conversation. And the fact that the Auburn fans wanted to push Malzahn at the door will not matter. Fans are not under an obligation to be consistent with their mob mentality. The mob wants one thing one day, wants another thing the next day, completely opposite in many cases. But consistency is not an obligation for the mob in college football. And you may see the Auburn mob do an about face. It's done that a couple of times before in recent years, and it may do a big about face in the very near future, and a lot of Georgia fans will be laughing at that once that takes place. One more quick SEC through story to get to here. On College Game Day tomorrow, broadcasting from downtown Charlotte before the Georgia-Clemson game, we have been told of a little UGA flavor for the show. Defending Cup Series champion in NASCAR, Georgia's own Chase Elliott, Dawsonville's own, going to be a part of the broadcast. College Game Day saying that he's going to join this show the weekend for a special guest. Does not say if he's going to be the guest picker or not. I don't know if he is or not, but he will be a part of the broadcast. And Chase's UGA fandom credentials are well established here. He loves the Dogs, supports them heavily, and a lot of Georgians obviously love Chase Elliott because of his connections to the state. Really the most popular driver in the NASCAR Cup Series, and Georgians kind of helped push that to be true, much the same way his father Bill Elliott was. So if you're looking for a little Georgia flavor for College Game Day tomorrow, Chase Elliott will provide that, and I'm really glad he's going to be on there. We'll make that your SEC through. And here on DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger, as hopefully a fun way to kind of close out our week here, I just want to roll through a bunch of really good Golden Shoe submissions. Some of y'all have just outdone yourself on some of this kind of stuff, so we won't spend a long time on this, but I want to give some credit where it's due and just roll through a few of these, including this first one with us getting ready to go to DawgNation Invasion. Great job by Bark-A-Lot here on Twitter. The DawgNation Invasion vehicle, there I am smiling and happy. You see Harry Dog. You see the beat Clemson. Good job incorporating the DawgNation Invasion logo. This is terrific for Bark-A-Lot, and I was already really excited about DawgNation Invasion. But, man, now I'm even more excited about that. I can't wait to load up into the bus tomorrow. I wish I was going in a classic vehicle like that. But either way, cannot wait to be on the DawgNation Invasion bus tomorrow, heading towards Charlotte, and all the fun that's going to be had at the tailgate after that. And for those of you who are lucky enough to get some tickets, secure your chance to be with us, man, we're just going to have a really, really good time, and I'm hoping that good time lasts well into Sunday and throughout the long weekend. We'll still be here on Monday, but for those of you who are off, hope you're ready to enjoy yourself on that. How about the next one here? Our buddy Jermaine King, and Jermaine's really good at some of his social media edit stuff. This is, I think, the first time we've had a comic strip as a part of our Golden Shoe submissions, but definitely Golden Shoe worthy. So Jermaine, for those of you not watching on video, he's got me interviewing Ric Flair at the top strip here. I've got the tuxedo on, and then you've got Ric Flair down there, finally ending with Flair, obviously with his UGA ties. This is really good stuff all the way around from Jermaine King. A very clever comic strip incorporating me with the Nature Boy. That's always an easy win. Of course, Dogs going back to Charlotte. The legendary home of Ric Flair, so thinking about Flair certainly appropriate, and Jermaine King, a terrific comic strip themed Golden Shoe submission will make Jermaine King a winner today. A lot of you let me know how well stocked up you are for the weekend to come. Obviously, beverage is pretty important here. Look at Jesse Smith's refrigerator. I see the long drink strong. I see the long drink zero. I see the long drink traditional. Some other stuff there as well. Jesse is ready to go with plenty of long drink there in the refrigerator. I love to see the finished long drink well stocked like that. Good job by Jesse Smith on that. Not to be outdone, Drew Palk's also showing off his finished long drink as he gets ready to go for the weekend. Not to be outdone by that. I believe we have another. How about Jesse Smith here also as well, who from Wisconsin. So Jesse had to have all 4 varieties shipped to his home there in Wisconsin. So he's enjoying all of that. And, Jesse, I hope you're getting ready for a great weekend. Thank you so much for being a part of that there as well. I think we have, Joel Sidney Kelly, who actually won the Golden Shoe yesterday, comes back with this one. Now, for those of you not watching on video, I've got to describe this to you because this is truly a work of art. Like, if this was real, I'm scared to think how much money I would spend to buy this. It is Kendall Milton with a 1982 Topps football card. This is just amazing. Now, Joel has been doing the countdown, so he did Milton jersey number 2 with 2 days to go. But this kind of reminds me, like pretty soon in the new NIL world that we're living in, you're going to have one of these card companies, whether it be Fanatics who's about to take over or Topps and Panini who've been on the scene for a while. Somebody's going to do the college player card sets, and you're going to have cool designs like this of guys like Kendall Milton. Let me tell you something. I'm going to go broke once that happens. My wife's going to kick me out of the house because of all the money I'm going to spend on, Georgia football cards. But Kendall Milton with the old school 82 Topps motif there from Joel Sidney Kelly, who is just a pro at this kind of stuff. That is so, so good and so Golden Shoe worthy all the way around, and a great way to finish off a fun week before we all go to Charlotte tomorrow. But before we get to the Queen City, we got high school football to take care of tonight. And don't forget, Peachtree TV, CBS 46, Alatoona, and Kennesaw Mountain. What a game it's going to be. You got an Ohio State commit on the one side. You got Division I Duke commit on the other. You got juniors who are going to be earning some big offers. You got big time players on both sides, and it's going to be a fun time. Our buddy Rusty Manziel, Jeff Santel, a part of that. A whole host of folks bringing that to you. Peachtree TV, CBS 46. I'll see you there for that game. Then going to sleep for a couple hours, hopping on the bus in the morning. We're rolling down the road, or up the road, I guess, in this case, to Charlotte. DawgNation Invasion. We'll be live with the tailgate with you, with our friends from the Finished Long Drink, Meriwether and Tharp, Kroger and R.S. Andrews. I'll see you for the Kroger kickoff before the game. We'll show you a version of the dog walk for that. Then after the game, Terrence Edwards and me for the DawgNation postgame show. Going to be good times all the way around. We will also remind you, 57 days from now, Dogs get a win against Florida. We'll talk to you Monday. DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger. Have a great weekend, everybody. And on video, time now for the R.S. Andrews cool down. Air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric. R.S. Andrews can be the one you trust for all of that. They show up on time. They do the work that's promised for the price that's promised. That is what R.S. Andrews can do for you. And that air conditioning unit that may be tired and on its last legs, you can get it tuned back up to factory fresh specs. So make sure you find them today on all of that. All right, so here's how it's going to go. We got to be, and I know I always say this, but today we really do. We have to be very, very quick because I got a gazillion things we got to do, but I want to be respectful. Take your comments, Facebook and YouTube and DawgNation.com and all that kind of stuff. We're going to have to kind of bounce through some of these pretty fast here because we got a lot of miles to go before we sleep tonight. All right, let's do YouTube first. On YouTube first, I don't think I did YouTube first yesterday. We'll get a few of these and have a good time. Bank 6 on the side of things for Clemson. Yeah, there is all kinds of talk about, guys possibly missing for Clemson. I know Mike Griffith's going to have a good update on this there at DawgNation.com there as well. Scott Harris says, who has to have a big game for the Dogs? Salyer, JD, Cine, JT. Yeah, I'll take all those. David Jackson on the subject of linebackers. I mean, that's got to be a key position group for Georgia. Much the same way, David, all week long I've said, got to utilize your running backs in creative ways in a game like this because that's a deep position group. Linebackers, when you think both inside and outside, you're also talking about an incredibly deep position group there too, and those players have got to matter on Saturday. They can't be fundamentally sound, gap sound. I mean, not to say that you don't want to be that, but this is not about, a PFF grade. This is about going out there and getting your name in the stat sheet, the real one, the one that that everybody's paying attention to. This is about wreaking havoc in the game plan, turning those guys loose. That's what I want to see. Talon Pate asking about the injuries and whether they were caused by the intense summer for Georgia. I don't really think that's the case. I'm a big believer that sometimes injuries just happen. Sometimes it's just bad luck, and sometimes they kind of pile up. And I think there are always going to be media folks try to make it mean something and connect dots that may or may not be worthy of connecting. But for me, I think that Georgia's been the unfortunate recipient of just some bad luck, but I don't connect it to anything that Georgia's done to cause it. I don't, but I understand where the question comes from. Jermaine, thanks for the kind words. Appreciate you, the well wishes there for a safe trip. And the comic strip with Flair and me was really, really good. So much fun. Thank you so much. What else? Jim McLaughlin says, can the offensive line protect JT? That's the key. I think that's true. I also think getting rid of the football quickly, moving the chains. Remember, look, in college football in 2021, the offense, the way that it works, makes the job of an offensive line easier. You don't see a lot of teams anymore trying to do what Georgia was trying to do circa 2018, 2019 with these giant 6'7", 340-pound behemoths and this wall that you build in front of a quarterback. Most teams aren't quite doing it that way anymore. And so what you're looking to do is make a quick decision, get rid of the football, get the offense moving, and at that point in time, the job of the offensive line is also made a little bit easier. That's what I think Georgia was trying to do and is trying to do in the transition to Todd Monken, looking for slightly different offensive linemen. These guys, in some respects, are smaller than what Georgia has had in recent years. Looking to create an offense that's on the move that doesn't require the offensive lineman to sit there and, hand-to-hand combat for 12 seconds on every play. Keith Folds says I've said 34-24, and I'm sticking with it. Some folks are asking for my game prediction. I've said now a couple of times, I'll take Georgia 31-28, 30-27, something in those lines. I think it's a narrow win. I think Georgia's got to score 32 win, and that's what I think this one kind of plays out like for Georgia on Saturday. Matt Rukavina says player of the game for him is going to be James Cook, 150 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns. That'd be fun to see. He said Jesse Jones says double A with an quadruple S, a strip, sack, scoop, score. That's fun. I like that. Randy Hall says I could have been Nature Boy's manager in that tuxedo that Jermaine King had me wearing. I do think that I could have been a good J.J. Dillon. Like, I could not have been a wrestler because, frankly, I don't have a high enough pain tolerance to get dumped on my head. But as kind of like one of those heel managers, what J.J. Dillon used to be, taking his shoe off and hitting people with it, or what like Paul Heyman is now. I think that like one of these days, you have like a bucket list. Like one of these days, I may go find myself like one of these indie promotions and see if they'll just let me be a heel manager. And I don't mind if, the good guy roughs me up a little bit, gets a pop from the crowd. But I may go try to be a heel manager in one of these indie promotions one day. Joseph Kennedy says I look like Jim Cornette. I don't know if I should take that as a compliment, but maybe I'll bring the tennis racket here one day, and we'll do some of that kind of stuff. Chase Jesse Barbie says the game's going to boil down to who has the best day on special teams. It will be huge, and I think you like Georgia there. Bill Sanders says more like Mr. Fuji with his cane. Yeah, Mr. Fuji, now he wore the tuxedo, right? He definitely did that, or at least, for a portion of his career. He was all decked out in the tuxedo. I remember that. I never understood why he wore a tuxedo, but he did wear a tuxedo. Marshall Fleming says we have so many weapons with different skill sets and that no one's seen on offense. I think Todd is going to dial up so many big plays. Yeah, I respect Todd Monken as a sharp play caller, and I think on Saturday it's his chance to show that. Pre-snap motion, how you move guys around, where you put them, and how you creatively deploy them on Saturday. Big day to do that. Brian Whitehead says Chase Elliott is going to be the guest picker. So more than just a guest, although the tweet didn't say that he will be the guest picker. Well, that's good. I like that. I like Chase, first of all. Huge fan of Chase Elliott. And I like the idea of a big Georgia fan doing the guest picking stuff. I like that all the way around. Chase Smith mentioned the Georgia offensive line. I should say Georgia defensive line. Chase mentions, yeah, that's got to be a big advantage. Defensive line's got to matter for you in a game like this. Bobby Leather says which receiver steps up. Easiest name to give on that, I believe, is Jermaine Burton. Alan McGovern says, hate the later start on game days, tied in knots all day long. Yeah. I mean, for some people, especially those who are not imbibing, it is a long wait, man. That is a long wait of a lot of thoughts. And, it's fun to watch the other games, but when you're looking for that fix that you get of emotional adrenaline from watching Georgia Clemson, the rest of the games don't quite hit the same way. I understand that. Tennille Calvino working on both comment sections. I'm glad to see Tennille. Tennille's an important voice in a day like this. Oh, Jermaine King said Mr. Fuji was trying to look like Odd Job in the James Bond movies. So weirdly, I think of myself as fairly culturally literate. I have a pretty good handle on pop culture. I'm not as well versed in James Bond as you might think. I've seen some of the movies, and I obviously know a decent number of Bond references, but I've probably seen a lot fewer James Bond movies than maybe someone who, generally speaking, has seen a lot of movies. I've never been as big of a Bond fan. Jesse Dellinger, high on Kendall Milton. Great chance to show that this Saturday. Brad Oglesby said I missed the first minutes. So there's all kinds of rumors out there on the Clemson part of this. I'll let reporters confirm, and we'll talk about tomorrow on the Kroger kickoff. At least one of those I think is a bunch of hot air. Of the rumors that are out there regarding Clemson and who's not playing, there's at least one of those that's I don't put much faith and much stock in. But a couple of those others may very well be real. Isaac Cruz says, do you see a lot of turnovers in this game? Yeah, I think it's always a possibility. First of all, Georgia wants to be an impactful defense, and pass rush and havoc leads to turnovers in some cases. But also for JT Daniels, listen, I want JT Daniels to take some risks. And I know full well that it's not a risk unless there's a downside, a punishment to the potential reward. So, the one thing I'm not going to do, and I promise you this, I am not going to be panicked if Daniels throws an interception. I'm going to be panicked if Georgia's not taking the kind of shots down the field that give it a chance to win. The thing that makes me panicked is careful football, not aggressive football. When you're aggressive, you're going to have a mistake that pops up every now and then. But if you've got the kind of defense that Georgia fans want to believe they have, even with the question marks in the secondary, then you ought to be willing to be the aggressive team. The team with the most talent ought to be the one that pushes the envelope. And yes, I know Clemson's a very talented team and certainly a well-developed team because of all the success they've had. But from a talent standpoint, Georgia takes a backseat to no one. So go out there and push the envelope. And so if Daniels, throws it into a tight window and it gets picked off, then my mindset's going to be go play defense and get the ball, get the ball back. And when Daniels gets the football again, still be aggressive, still take those shots. I'm not talking about one-dimensional football. I want to see Georgia run the ball plenty. But I want to see this passing attack for Georgia put the Clemson defense, put Brent Venables and his Georgia hadn't won a national championship since 1980 mindset. I want to see Venables put into conflict on Saturday. I want him forced to make a decision. Are they passing? Are they running? Where am I watching? Vertical, short, left, right. I want to see the Clemson defense and the coordinator who's calling the plays. I want him put into decision conflict, and it takes the passing game to do that. Chris Slim White, excited about Zamir White, and I am there as well, Chris. I very much am. Chris Tittle also shouting out A.D. Mitchell. I think he's a factor in this game. I do. He's not my top 3 in receiver right now, but he's going to be on the field. Matt Rukavina, thanks for being there. Gerald Harmon on the movie Tenet. Yeah, I watched Tenet. There are some movies I'm not smart enough to understand. That's one of those, I paused it like 9 times. I was like Wikipediaing the movie while I was watching it, trying to understand it. It's very easy to go over my head, and Tenet just about did. Epic Robinson says no more 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Totally agree on that. Randy Hall says on DawgNation.com, after we win, go on the sidelines, get about a dozen commits. I like that. Robbie Rainey. Interesting comments from him there as well. Brian Whitehead also, once again, confirming the Chase Elliott thing. He says, another reason why I'm a Chase Elliott fan. Yeah, I love that. Cedric Grant says, I'm still turned up about Brent Venables. Yeah, listen, I'm not scandalized by negative recruiting. I know that it goes on, and if you get your feelings hurt easily, it's recruiting may not be for you. But at the same time, I want to see Georgia, roll up its sleeves and street fight on this kind of stuff just as hard as anybody else is, and beating a team on the field shuts guys like that up, and I do believe that. Fly Guy says Cine's going to lay the wood tomorrow. I agree with that. Yeah, really good comments all the way around. Robbie Rainey says, well, I do the Ric Flair strut midfield after the game. Yeah, you better believe it. I don't want to do it too soon. But a little styling profiling, I wouldn't mind doing that tomorrow. I'll have my alligator shoes on, Rolex watch, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing. I'm all about all of that. Shannon Heyer says, do you think we get caught up in rotating players instead of having the best players in the field at all times? It's an interesting question, Shannon. Last year Georgia probably did not rotate receivers quite as much as it had in the past, and I think watching for that on Saturday will be interesting to see if Georgia looks like it did more in 2019 when it was rotating a lot, or like it was in 2020 when it was rotating a little bit less. The one spot where I think they probably do rotate a decent amount may be in the secondary, because if I'm guessing, they may not quite know for sure what they have there yet, so they may be trying a few guys there as a way of just kind of trying to identify what they do have. Craig Hill says, step on him with the hobnail boot. I like that. Barry Watkins on the subject of Big Bear being there on Saturday. That was good stuff to hear from Jeff Sintel on that. Santiago D. Arnold near says, if we run for 250 yards, how many passing yards will we need to win? That's a good question. I don't know what, 250, at least 250 on the passing side there as well, maybe. How about 250 on both sides there? Chris Branham says, you had any game day spread recommendations? So here's my thing on this. I'm a big believer in that you can get yourself in a lot of trouble with a tailgate if you don't have enough protein. Because here's the thing. It's like if you're getting a tailgate together with a bunch of people, and gosh knows I've been this person 1,000 times, when everybody's supposed to bring something, it is so easy to grab some chips and dip and say, hey, I brought something. But the problem is when everybody does that, you got a bunch of carbs on the table and not enough protein. Now, listen, as a respected member of the Coastal Elite Broadcast Media, I have an obligation to say everybody's got to, drink responsibly. But when you are, consuming, if all you're doing is eating a bunch of carbs, that is a recipe for disaster, especially in a hot day. So, I got to have a bunch of protein on the table. I like the smoked wings. Honestly, that's one of my favorite foods all the way around. I like the ribs. I can even do the burger. But, man, I got to have a bunch of protein. Because otherwise tailgates can go wrong really, really fast. Barry Watkins says wings for sure. I'm not, good at cooking this. But the people who do the slow-cooked wings, I believe I'd eat a smoked wing over almost any food on the planet. Some of the best stuff you can have. Nick Roundtree says low country boil grilled meat. I'll say this about the low country boil. That is one of the easier things to cook that almost always tastes great. You get the shrimp, the sausage, the corn, the potatoes, the Old Bay seasoning, bunch of water. Boil that thing up. It's hard to mess up. Just dump it on some butcher paper when it's done. Get you one of those big turkey fryers and boil it in there. It's hard to mess that up, and it tastes great. That's a really good idea. I kind of like doing that against a team like you're playing LSU or something like that. Kind of sort of try to step on their corner for something like that. I like tailgate meals that coincide with the opponent. A little low country boil if you're playing LSU is always a lot of fun, but it's hard to mess that up, and it tastes good. Let's see what else. Hayes Calloway says he loves some wings. Nick Roundtree says oyster roast for the cocktail party. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like the people who do the oyster roast where they just have the pot of boiling water. You got to be careful with this because a bunch of knuckleheads, going to burn themselves. But just put the boiling pot in the middle of the tailgate, and people can walk over and drop their own oysters in there and boil them themselves. Some of y'all don't even boil them, but you know what I'm saying. For the people who do that, that's always really fun. Shannon Heyer says thin cut pork chops going to be on the grill tomorrow. I like that too. Philip Jordan Wells says he's going to be eating stewed cat meat in Charlotte. Jamie Huff says, will Tyndall start? If I had to guess, probably not start, but playing a lot. Yeah, I would expect that we see him there. Keith Fold says we do a low country boil every time we go camping. Yeah. There is some food that just tastes better outside. Like, I don't know that I've ever eaten a low country boil inside. You know, it's one of those things you want to be outdoors when you eat it. It tastes good. It tastes good outdoors for sure. Gosh, it'll get me hungry. Yeah, I'm trying not to eat a ton of food right now, but good stuff. Thomas Van Santa says teriyaki chicken wings with wasabi. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, we got to go. Scott Harris, good stuff here. All right, Memphis Dog says taters and gators. Beat them and eat them. I like the Memphis Dog. That's really good. Talon Pate says smoked brisket with the burnt ends. Yeah, brisket's hard to do well. And like when it comes to my brisket, I do like the burnt end part of it. I love that. I also like the fatty slice brisket. Like, I have to admit, I like the people that like the chopped, like lean brisket. Like, I can't get with that. That doesn't have enough flavor for me. I like very, very fatty, sliced brisket. I do like the char on the outside. I very much like that all the way around. Thomas Van Santa says Amir Speed's going to have a great game. Going to have a great game. Yeah, I think he's a big part of what Georgia does. I really do. And I obviously root for all the Georgia players, but in particular, these guys who've been here since 2017, Speed and Brini, I hope they get rewarded. There's a practical reason for that, because you want guys to believe that their chance will come if they choose to stick around Georgia. But there's also just this kind of thing of, this is what football's supposed to be. I mean, on the one side of this, we talk about name, image, and likeness and quarterback making $1 million or, whatever else. But that's not what most of college football is. Most of college football is like what we're going to put on Peachtree TV tonight. Good high school players trying to earn something in their junior and senior seasons, getting that scholarship offer. And for most of these guys, they will have to wait. For most of these guys, their turn will come in some future year. And for most of these guys, transfer portal and finding greener pastures somewhere else, most of that is an unnecessary distraction. The best path, I believe, is the one that Amir Speed has chosen to travel, and showing some real integrity to choose to stick it out. I think Latavius Brini the same way. Could have gone somewhere else, could have possibly played much sooner somewhere else, but chose to stick it out at Georgia. So somewhat selfishly, boy, I hope Amir Speed does get an interception. I hope Amir Speed does, break up a pass at a key moment, because I want guys like that to be rewarded. It's good for the program, but it's also just good for the players themselves. G. Grace Bama Boy says, how about those lemon pepper wings? I do like the lemon peppers, man. I do. Now, I don't like – some of y'all like the extra wet lemon pepper wings. I kind of like a dry rub lemon pepper more than anything else, but I realize that may make me a little bit weird. Worm on the idea of Keely Ringo playing offense. I mean, he played great offense in high school. I'll tell you that. That film of him running up and down the field over in Arizona was pretty amazing to see. All right, we have to go. Appreciate everything. Rick, excited about UGA. Love to see it. He says Dabo's really going to ask Kirby Smart, would you like fries with that after the game? Good stuff. All right, thanks for being here. Y'all check out the Atlanta Journal-Constitution online, ajc.com. Really appreciate that. Of course, lots of coverage of Georgia Clemson there from our buddy Chip Towers, but also all kinds of other fun stuff there as well. Everything going on with the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, Falcons getting that down to that 53-man roster situation. That's really important. Other stuff there as well. Update on some of the politics stuff, weekend predictions for all the football games that are out there. Of course, don't forget, we got 2 games in Atlanta, so there'll be big coverage of Alabama, Miami, of Ole Miss, Louisville, all that online at AtlantaJournalConstitution.com, plus beyond the world of football, 16 other things to do in the metro Atlanta area this weekend, ajc.com for more details on that. Y'all have a great weekend. I know you will, depending on the result of Saturday night, but one way or another, we're back to talk to you about it again on Monday for our R.S. Andrews Cool Down, brought to you by R.S. Andrews, online, rsandrews.com. If your water heater goes out this weekend, don't fret. In many cases, R.S. Andrews can replace it for you the same day. Just find them online at rsandrews.com. And, of course, back here Monday, DawgNation Daily, presented by Kroger. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.